I'm going to call is Rhonda because Rhonda has a baby. Baby is going to sleep. So Rhonda, where are you?
Gene was a really special person in my life, as I'm sure he was in all of yours. And I'd never met anyone that put more effort into making sure that he didn't die old and comfortable in his bed. But I'm pretty convinced that it's because that the Grim Reaper really didn't want to mess with him in his prime. And he was, you know, he tried to wait until he was weakened enough to maybe come for him, but I'm pretty sure that Gene still gave him the fight of his life and was dipping his head in the river Styx. But I want to keep this a happy day. He's one of the most inspirational people I ever met, and I just wanted to know that yesterday I walked out to win a pro wrestling title because of him. I wouldn't have been there without him, and I wore his pinky thinking of him. And I took my black belt off and I whipped the crap out of some chick with it, thinking of him. And when she passed out from the pain and was lying unconscious on the ground, I stepped over her unconscious body and tried to step on it on my way over, thinking of him. And I know that those moments thinking of him won't stop. Especially every time I look at this little girl. Is up. So, thank you guys for loving the one that I love too.
I just want to say too what a class person Ronda Rousey is, because she wore a pink jean gi a couple of weeks ago on television. Then after that she wore a t-shirt sort of pointing out of respect to the indigenous people of Canada, you know, that whole issue. She follows Gene's lead on social issues. On Gene, I worked, Dan Westbrook, the lead, and myself worked in the Los Angeles wrestling office, the LeBell office. And we'd see Gene 3-4 times a week minimum at our Wednesday and Friday Olympic Auditorium shows, T2 and T13, where Gene took over as lead announcer, play-by-play, for Dick Lane when he left. So Gene was doing that. He'd be the first to say he wasn't comfortable on promos. This is a guy that people sought out. I remember Gene telling me all kinds of stories of Inoki. We just lost about a month after Gene passed, which is a horrific loss for the MMA community, wrestling, and the whole planet. Gene said that he offered him and always wanted to pick up the Inoki-san coming into LA from about 1963-64 on, and that Inoki taught him how to curse in Japanese, Nihongo. And I see so many people that Gene brought with him to the Roddy Piper Memorial that we had in 2015, including Josh Barnett and Boss Root and some other legends that we want to salute that are here besides Rhonda. But Cheryl Russa, I think he came to that as well. And we all loved Gene. We all respected him no matter what. You know, if Go-Kart had this outside, there would be thousands and thousands of Gene LeBell marks from film, TV, stunt work, let alone martial arts and pro wrestling. No matter how to put that much faith.
Gene is Uncle Gene to so many of us.
Yes, sir.
Early on, Scotland Association, I had a job to do like a car jump. I was just passenger, and Gene goes, "Come to my house." So Gene takes me into his pad room and outfitted me up, you know, with catcher's gear and stuff on my knees and everything. Gene was so generous to all of us. And I got a job one time arm wrestling with Gene LeBell. And we were arm wrestling over 2 live scorpions. So whoever's arm went down got a scorpion. And we were ready to roll, and Gene reached out and grabbed me by the bicep and said to me, "Did you have polio?" That's it. I love Gene. He's my Uncle Gene and always will be. God bless you.
Hello, my name is Hank, and I'm an alcoholic. Wrong meeting. I've known Gene LeBell. Gene was my mentor, training me for the World Championship. I'm in the Karate Hall of Fame. And I'm also a comedian, and Gene was sitting in my audience. And I talked about Gene, and I said, Gene was out driving, and he got a call from Mitch. He said, Gene, please be careful. I just heard on the news that there's a car going in the wrong direction on the 405. And he said, one car? There are hundreds of cars going in the wrong direction on the 405. Gene was my mentor. I met him, God, before I came out here. I was wrestling in California. I was wrestling in New York at Madison Square Garden. And I met Gene. And my life changed. He started training me. And recently, a few years ago, I was up for the championship pro wrestling. I'm in the Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame thanks to Gene LeBell. Thanks to Gene as an actor, I won the New York Film Critics for a movie I did called 3 Days of the Congo with Robert Redford. Great movie. Gene choreographed my fight. Thank you so much. And all I can say is, I wouldn't be here, and so many people who were touched by an angel named Judo Gene LeBell.
Gary Gould, good friend to Gene, not as long as some of you that knew him all the way back to his origins. Of course, I knew him on highway patrol. He jumped over a couch, dressed as Broderick Crawford. There's a word we have for a guy like Gene in a Jewish faith, and that is, he was a mensch. On my dad's grave, it says, here lies a mensch, and I'm going to tell you, Gene LeBell, there was a lot of things, but he was a real mensch. I'm going to mention two of his friends. One who died a little while back, Hal Sharp. When Gene was banned from judo for being the only judo guy to throw like Ronda, which is ridiculous, judo missed the bus. He would go work out at Sharp's dojo, and Sharp says he used to throw him around. I don't know if I believe that. And Sharp passed away. He made it to his 10th dawn. The other guy who I was really hoping would be here today, I just left him yesterday at the U.S. Judo Federation's board meeting, is the person Gene refers to in his book as, if you're a Hayward, you're really something special. I was with Hayward yesterday. Hayward brought him up at the board meeting, and we had a moment of silence for him. And anyhow, I won't take too much time, I promise, go-kart. I do want to tell one Gene LeBell story, it's a good one. My cousin's kind of this world-famous environmentalist, and he was doing a book signing. And his best man at his wedding was Shatner, believe it or not. And the other guy who was at this book signing was Steven Seagal. So I walked up to Seagal, reached out, hey, I'm a 7th Dan in judo. He just sat there like this, looking out like a real prick. Then my wife came over to me. Gary, excuse me, sorry. My wife came over to save me. Like, get away from him, you're embarrassing yourself. And I said, hang on, Sharon, I got one more thing to say. I said, you know, we do have a mutual friend. And he goes, looks at me and goes, Gene told me if I ran into you to give you his best regards. He went like this. And I said, okay, Sharon, I'm ready to walk away. And I went out to my car and I called Gene and told him that story. He said, you know, I'm under obligation not to talk about that. I said, that's okay, I did it for you. Anyhow, rest in peace, Gene. You're a real mensch. Thanks, everyone.
My name's Mike Barger. I met Gene, 50 some odd years ago, whatever it was. And the very first time I met him, I was a kid going to the Olympic Auditorium, and he was on the wrestling card and I got his autograph. Little did I know that some 12, 13 years later, I was going to be on the mat getting my butt kicked by this guy. But I got to see Gene in a little different light. What I mean by that, I saw his sense of humor. The last time I got to work out with him, 2008, and that guy bit through my ear. He calls me the next day and he says, "You're going to get something in the mail." I said, "What's that?" He says, "You'll like it. Gene's ear." Gene's ear. And then in his last days, I was sitting at home and his wife calls me. And she says, "Gene needs you." I said, "What's the matter?" And he won't let the paramedics examine him until you come over and take a look at him. I was trained in emergency, works in emergency for, it seems like 100 years. But he would not let anybody pick him up, take him to the hospital until I checked him over. So, called his doctor and said he's got to go to the hospital now. So anyway, rest in peace, Gene.
I come from New York, but my thing is I would like to do it a little different. I would like to imagine a young Gene LeBell standing by a lake and picking up a small stone, and in his hand it's a wealth of martial arts knowledge. And then I see him taking this stone and throwing it in the lake, as many of us have probably done at one time in our life, to see how many ripples you get as you throw that stone. Well, I picture that each ripple is someone or people that he has taught, people that he's inspired, and people that he's entertained. And each of those ripples, as it's moving that body of water, it's moving from a lake into a river and into an ocean. And looking at the general population here, I guess we're the ocean. The people that he has impacted in his life. And as they say, as martial artists, we know, fighting is limited, but teaching is infinite. And so his teachings will always be forever, and he will never leave us. Okay, I want to leave you with that thought. Thank you so much.
Hello everybody, my name is Sarah Zanariri. I'm honored to be part of the celebration of life for Sensei Gene LeBell. I was lucky and blessed to get to meet him about 10 years ago, and his beautiful wife. And everybody here knows what a great martial artist he was, and he will always be remembered as that. But what I loved about him most was his sense of humor. He would be kidding around in such a serious way and make you crack up, and it took me a while before I got the taste of his sense of humor. One time he was talking to a fighter, a girl fighter, and he said, "Oh, you have a great face for a radio show." Another time I called him, I wanted to take some sweet gums to him, and he started yelling at me over the phone. "Where have you been? I've been waiting." And I got nervous. It's like, did I forget I had an appointment with Sensei Gene? And then Mitch came on the phone and said, "No, it's just pulling your leg." So all I can remember, all the memories I have from him are fun, good stuff, aside from his martial arts genius. There are 3 people who sent me clips. Unfortunately, we were not able to put them up. I want to mention their names. Sensei Benny the Jet, he's in Australia right now. He wanted to say a few words. Eventually we'll get it on social media so you can all watch and hear his own words. But he sends his condolences, he sends his love, and positive energy to everybody, especially to Mitch and the immediate family, and everybody here who is missing that man. The other person is Census Cecil Peoples. Census Cecil Peoples also is out of town. He also made a clip, and we'll put that on social media as well, but he sent his love and condolences. And Michael Masuda from Museum of Martial Arts, same thing, he couldn't make it, he made a clip. All of these will be on social media at some point. I don't want to go over my 3 minutes. I don't want to get in trouble with this man. Thank you for being here, and I know we're all honored to be part of this celebration of life.
Can't hear you, Sandy.
Is that better? Anyway, he would say, you know, I've got a small bike, come ride with us. And I go, no. I would watch the guys come back from riding the bike. Every single one of them were hurt. Their arms were bruised, what was broken, somebody hurt themselves somewhere else, and I just absolutely refused to go. But anyway, we stayed friends, and I was doing a show called They Came from Outer Space. About 2 guys that came to California, and they enrolled in their all-girls school in the show, and I hired Uncle Gene to be a painter on a ladder to paint the word all girls out. And while he's on the ladder, the girls are picketing, and they pull him off the ladder. Well, he's wearing Farmer John's, and they pull him off the ladder all right, but they got hold of his pants to pull him down, and his whole Farmer John's came off, and he was wearing red Speedos. And he's laughing, he goes, let's do it again, I want to do this again. And I think we ended up doing it 3 or 4 times because he wanted to let his red Speedo show. But, you know, he was always Uncle Gene to me. I absolutely loved him dearly. When I had to hire a martial artist for my shows, Tony Cousin and Jet. And I was there, and they took care of me really well. And I just want to say I love him and I miss him. And I thank the Lord I got to see him a couple of weeks before he went up there. So thank you guys very much.
Hi everyone, my name is Jonathan King. I'm the commentator for Up Next Fighting. Up Next Fighting is the people who brought all the food and sponsored this great event because Uncle Gene meant so much to many of us. I had the pleasure of spending time with Uncle Gene in his house, going over countless stories. And, you know, when I was getting started as a commentator in MMA, I didn't have a lot of confidence. I wasn't a black belt. I'm not a karate expert, but I can talk. And Uncle Gene would always tell me how great I did and how important what I did was for this sport. And before he passed away, we would email each other all the time. And the last email I got from him, he said, remember kid, you're my hero. So those words kind of only match the words that come from my dad. And it's pretty amazing. All this love here is amazing. I want to thank George Basmajian for Up Next Fighting. He pays me a lot of money to do the talking because he doesn't like to do it. So thank you all for coming out. Thank you all for your stories and your blessings. And
hey guys, a few things. Mark, where's Mark? We want to thank you, Mark. We bring the security team over here from his side. Everybody give him Mark a good hand. I would really appreciate the people are helping as much as possible they can. And I know it's the love of Gene. Like exactly when the George helped him, he makes all that coins. It's a lot of coins there, and the coin money, or you pay for it, is going to the children's hospital. That's what the Sensei Gene LeBell wish was. The money's not going anywhere else. It goes to directly to the children's hospital. I will do that.
Okay, so this is the way I met Gene LeBell. In '96, I came out here to check out America, see what it would be like. At the Los Angeles Police Academy, you were there as well, everybody was there. And I was teaching leg locks, and this crazy guy, and I heard of Gene LeBell, but I never met him. And this crazy guy was constantly, when I made a lock, he goes, "Perfectly executed!" And I thought, who's this crazy guy with the red hair is walking around? I go, well, he's talking good things, so I just let him go, you know? But constantly he would say something, and it was good stuff, so I really enjoyed him already. And then my friend came over to me and he says, "Hey, boss, you want to meet Gene LeBell?" I go, "Man, he's here." And he goes, "Yeah, he's here." And he walked me to the guy with the red hair. And that was Gene LeBell. So since then we started connecting. Great guy. I remember a story I gave him a t-shirt one time because he wanted to pick up chicks, is what he said. I had my face on it, and he says, maybe it's because it says El Guapo, maybe I have more luck. And unfortunately it didn't work, he said, but then he realized that the lady told him, you're wearing it inside out. And that was his joke to me. I heard that story 15 times from him every time I met him. But you know Gene. That was Gene. All right, I think we got the next one right there. George Barnett. Gravely missed, Gene. Gravely missed.
Thanks, bud. It's weird reading about Gene LeBell in martial arts magazines growing up as a kid, then eventually forging my own path in MMA with some great coaches, ending up under the tutelage of people like Billy Robinson and Tony Inoki in the world of professional wrestling, and coming back around again, meeting Gene LeBell, being an absolute awe, but yet having a connection between the two of us that just turned into a giant run-on joke that went on for the entirety of our relationship. So I met him and I talked to him about being with Inoki and being working. He goes, "Oh, and you're a former UFC fighter? Oh yeah, champ and all that. Oh, great. But you're a worker, yeah? Yeah. Stop that real stuff. That's stupid. You get hurt. Go work. It's way easier than doing this." I go, "You know, Gene, I get hurt doing that too, actually. And the scheduling is even worse." He goes, "If you can fall off a motorcycle, you can do anything." And I was like, "Well, I'm not trying to do that either." But we got to talk about, I go, "You know, you're a catch wrestler, so am I. And, you know, I train in judo as well. Obviously, this is your namesake." And I go, "You know, it always kills me. I always correct people. I go, it's not a kimura. It's a double wrist lock." So we went on about that a little bit. The next time I see him, he goes, "Hey, why don't you come up and teach me a kimura?" And I go, "Well, you know that's not the case." I get texts, and have gotten texts. Every time I know someone's ran into Gene LeBell, I get a call, I get a text message, someone wanting me to teach them the kimura. And I know exactly what has happened. It is without a doubt always the case. But you know, I've introduced my fighters have befriended Uncle Gene. Victor Henry, who's going to fight next weekend, legitimately said, "No, I have to be choked out to get that patch." And so he's been through it. We absolutely miss Gene. He was an amazing, amazing individual. And he's a legendary martial artist. And he's one of those people you say they don't make them like that anymore, right? Well, how about we just end that and we start trying to make them more like that? Learn from Gene and that example, carry that fire. That's what we can do in his honor. Thank you so much.
Sensei Chris, I'm from New York City, and I'm representing New York State Judo Incorporated. So, Gene LeBell, I didn't meet him like some of these other folks. I met him at a gas station in Burbank. And I'm with my girlfriend, maybe 30 years ago, 35 years ago, and I'm shaking, I'm like, "Oh my God, it's Gene LeBell." She's like, "What's wrong with you?" And I'm, you know, getting the giddies, and I was very, very overwhelmed. It's like meeting the Michael Jordan of judo, really. So we got to talking, and as you know, he always has the one-liners, and he always made you feel at ease. And from that experience led to another experience, conversations, as many in this room have probably experienced themselves. So I'll keep it brief. All I know is when he liked you, he cleaned his guns in front of you. Anyway, we'll leave it at that. Thank you very much. God bless you.
Everybody knows that God made men and women, and Uncle Gene. There's no one like him. So I want to just say 3 really quick stories. That's tough for me, but I want to say how I met him. I was at 20th Century Records. I got a guest starring role as a wrestler on Fall Guy. And Mickey Gilbert was so kind and wonderful and took me over to meet this guy named Gene LeBell. And he said, you're going to have him as a wrestling coach. And I'm like, oh, I'm already a professional wrestler. He goes, yeah, well, you'll see. So Gene said, lock up, and I locked up. He goes, you don't lock up like that. That's a sissy. You lock up like this. And I'm like, oh, wait a minute. Then the next 2 weeks, he wrapped my eyelashes around the ropes. He got me monkey flipped with my nose broken. I mean, everything that could go wrong went wrong. He loved it. And we wound up wrestling in Jello, Mud, and the final tag team match at the end. And I'm outside trying to get tagged in, And the director says, Gene, can she do that stunt you talked about? And I go, what stunt? That stunt. He goes, yeah, she can do it. Action. He grabs me by the back of the hair, throws me over the rope, and land in the middle. Everybody piles in on me. And he goes, yeah, she can do it. So my agent, who I was livid, saying, you gotta give this jerk, you gotta talk to her. She went over and started talking to him. I thought, yeah, she's gonna give her 2 cents now. She comes back, she goes, I love this guy. What do you mean you love this guy? He's an idiot. He tried to kill me for 14 days. And he came on up and he goes, Spicer, you did good. Want to be a stunt woman? I said, excuse me, I'm an actress. He said, yeah, well, why you started with being an actress? You want to make some money being a stunt woman? I said, well, what do I have to do? And he goes, you keep your effing mouth shut and you do what I say. And you never learn. That was the big stunt of my whole life. But I took that oath. And no matter what he did, he told me to do, I did. So, you know, I'm pretty muscular. I'm pretty tough, so when you go up to show up to hustle for a job, I would wear little mini skirts and high heels to try and look somewhat feminine. Every time he saw me, Spike, pick me up. I go, no, Uncle Gene, no. Pick me up! Pick me up! So he'd make me pick him up, throw me at the director's feet. I'm like, are you out of your mind? Throw him down. This got to be such a joke that Johnny Moya, wherever the heck you are, and Uncle Gene, I went to hustle, and they showed up and said, Spike, should I go along with this? I'm like, go along with what? We're at Samuel Mullen, going down the hallway, and he says there's a guy in there that says no woman can take him. I said, okay, let go. No. They're walking down the hallway screaming, no, Spice, don't do it. And I'm like, what am I supposed to do? Uncle Gene says, just go with it. By the time we get to that guy's room, he's sitting by the window, open, in a reclining chair. Johnny Moyle goes in, he goes, don't do it, Spice. Uncle Gene says, no. I saw what Uncle Gene was doing. What should I do, Ace? Pick him up! I had to pick him up, roll him on the couch, and then I jumped on the desk. The guy was a producer or something. Grabbed him by the throat. He almost went out the window. I said, are you the guy that thinks no woman can take you? He goes, yes. I kissed him. I said, hi, Spice. Literally. I see I only have 8 seconds left. I want to say one thing about Midjo, though. Wherever Midjo is, Midge, that woman is the greatest hero. Took his last breath before he crossed over. He professed his undying love for that woman, and there's not anyone else who could put up with his OCD, his stubbornness. I mean, Frank Sinatra doing it my way? No. Uncle Gene should have sung that song. And that woman took care of him, loved him, and he knew it. He knew it. So, thank you, everyone.
Guys, please keep it 3 minutes. I know everybody has a lot of stories, but keep it 3 minutes, so there's too many people here who want to talk.
Hey everybody, I'd first like to thank Gokor for the Armenian hospitality. I'm Bob Calhoun. I helped Judo Gene LeBell write his autobiography, The Godfather of Grappling, and I will tell you that writing a book with Gene, he was as exacting on every word, every paragraph, every sentence as he is with you guys on the mats here, learning chokeholds, learning leg blocks, learning all of them. But how many people here were at the Judo Gene LeBell roast about 17 years ago, 16 years ago? Well, I always wanted to do one of those kinds of Friar Club roasts, so I somehow finagled myself on the bill because I was writing a book at the time. And I started, you know, I'm up there, and like Chuck Norris is in the audience, Roddy Piper's in the audience, and I start to tell this joke, and it's like this convoluted Steven Seagal joke, and it's about the 100th Steven Seagal joke that night, and I'm just bombed. I mean, nobody thinks I'm funny, and I look out, and you know, there's Judo Gene LeBell, there's Boss Rutan, there's Gokor, there's Don Fry, there's all these men staring at me with these like kind of confused and mad looks on their faces, and they're guys who could kill me with their pinky finger. And I mean, it was maybe the most scary moment I ever had in my life. And so I'm just like, oh God, I've got to do something. So I tell this joke about, well, I'm not going to repeat it, probably because I don't remember it, but it had something to do with intimate relations with an alligator. And so I say the joke, and then I see Midge, and Midge starts to laugh. And then Gene starts to laugh, and then even Gokor over here is laughing. And I'm like, Jesus Christ, thank you so much. You know, but yeah, it was a scary, scary moment. But about Gene, I know a lot of you people here have gotten black belts from Gene, that have got brown belts, have trained, learned the deadliest fighting secrets in the whole world, and it's always with a laugh and always with a joke. It's like learning martial arts from Groucho Marx or something. I mean, but because of Gene, like, I helped him write his book, Godfather of Grappling. I've written 3 books since then, countless articles. So you got your black belts from Gene. I got my master's degree in journalism from Gene. Thank you so much. So much. Best writer workshop ever. Thank you so much, Gene. Thank you, Gokor.
Hello, I'm Anthony DeLongis, and I am Gene LeBell's bullwhip teacher. Of all the people that I have trained, and there have been many, I think I'm proudest of Gene, having him for a student. I first met Gene, I was guesting on the Hardy Boys, and shook his hand, and the next thing I knew I was over his head, and the next thing I knew I was back on the mat, shaking his hand and saying, "It's a pleasure to meet you, Mr. LeBell, sir." Gene, in 2010, he was responsible for getting me inducted into the Black Belt Hall of Fame as Weapons Instructor of the Year. I'm a weapons guy because I do not want to wrestle with the likes of Gene LeBell. And I will be forever grateful. He was on the cover of the magazine on that issue, and the first call I got was from Gene congratulating me and telling me I was his hero. Well, he's mine. I have no doubt that Gene is grappling with the angels and saying his catchphrase, "Don't worry, this won't hurt me a bit." I just wish I could hear that one more time. Gene, thank you for the knowledge, thank you for the friendship, thank you for the support, and thank you for my wonderful collection of your stuntman crests.
I'm Anne Maria Ramsey DeMars. Before I was known as Rhonda's mom, I was the world judo champion. And I had heard of Gene. He won the nationals in the early 50s before I was born. I knew some of his teammates, and I had heard stories about him in his wild days. I heard stories about him as a judo champion, but I wasn't a lot of judo champions. I've been a judo champion. So I moved out here to LA in 1982. I meet this guy, and he's got a lot of stories. Very nice, funny old guy. Tells me he's a stunt guy. Tells me he's been on movies. Here's one Midge, who's his fourth and fifth wife, and he rides motorcycles. And he figures it's all a bunch of big lies, right? But I mean, he's a nice old guy, so I'll work out with him. And then I come to find out that every word of it was true. And I think that one of the better things that you can do is live a life so that when you tell people your story, they think that's got to be made.
But anyway, my name's Suzanne Rampay, and I'm a stuntwoman. And I'm going to talk about a little hyper and sensitive side of Gene, because I was on a set doing some work, and there was a group of us sitting together. There we go, I can hear it now. Anyway, we were all together, and something came up with grappling, and of course Gene was there. And he said, "Yeah, I need someone." And basically, if they didn't step back, they didn't go anywhere else. It was mostly guys, and I thought, well, not out of bravery, but out of the fact that I know Gene, and I thought, okay, we're not on camera, I'm going to step forward. Literally step forward, grab my arm, see the ceiling, go down to the feet on the floor, and I'm like, oh my God, that was fast. But you know what? I knew that Gene was a gentle giant, and I knew that he never hurt me, and he wasn't throwing me on the ground for camera, and I just want to say that he has a very, and had a very tender heart here on earth. So that's my Gene.
My name is Steven Seagal, and Gene LeBell made me poop my pants.
All right, let's get this going. We're all here for Gene. Let's get a little tighter. Who here got choked out by Gene LeBell's? Applause. Well, I talked with Gene from 1980-ish to 1987, and there was this love-hate relationship. It's like we both loved him and we hated my body because he popped everything, broke everything. The first night I met him, popped out my rib. I cried for 2 years. I went back. I started teaching for him. The last time I saw him, he bit out a chunk out of my ear at Gokor's dojo. I deserved it. Thank you, Joe Gokor, for putting this on. The bottom line is this. Everybody wants to know the stories. Come to me. We're writing them down about Jim Brown, Jim Kelly, Bruce Lee, all sorts of stuff. But the bottom line is this. You guys are lucky to be here today. Mario Roberts. What happened to Gene happened to Gene. We had a war, Gene and I, because I got into a situation. I didn't choke the guy fully out. Gene got mad, had to beat up 3 or 4 other guys because of that. And he always called me at 2 in the morning and say, you didn't choke him out, you didn't choke him out, you drew your gun and you didn't fire, and all this other stuff. So bottom line is, I hear what happens to Seagal. So I hired Gene. I said, Gene, who was physically there? He goes, well, there's a lot of stunt guys around, but there's only one guy there, Mario Roberts. So it was Seagal, Seagal's bodyguard, and Mario Roberts. Mario, where you at? They need to hear this story. And while he's walking up, come here, buddy, come here. So anyway, we all love Gene. We all have stories about Gene. This is great. Thank you again. Go for it. Okay, he's got to take his shoes off. I guess, yeah. Anyway, here we go. Mario Roberts. And he's going to tell you from beginning to end the whole Seagal story. And by the way, Gene found out later that Seagal pooped his pants from the wardrobe lady on another show. So anyhow, here's Mario Roberts.
While they're hugging and stuff, maybe I'll tell you another story.
Anyway, I'll just make it short and quick. We were working together on, I think it was Hard to Kill, with Steven Seagal, and...
Put it against your chin.
Closer? Here? Is that better?
Yeah.
Oh, there you go. I was wondering why I couldn't hear anybody. Anyway, we were getting ready to set up a shot, and Gene had brought his four-wheeler to the set because they were going to do a camera shot with Gene driving the four-wheeler and the cameraman on the back looking back at the at Steven Seagal chasing, I think it was Danny Trejo. They were running out, chasing each other. And so anyway, he said, Mario, let's go to the back and help me unload my truck, my four-wheeler. I said, okay. So I'm walking in the back, and as I'm walking back there with him, we were at Values-A Ranch at the time. I walked in the back with him, and there's the motorhome on our left, and Steven was sitting in his director's chair just in front of it, and his LAPD guard was right there to the right, and we were talking. So Gene and I'm following Gene. He's walking forward, walks behind Seagal, and as he walks past him, Seagal saw him, and he said, hey, is that Gene LeBell? He goes, he told his LAPD guy, he goes, this is the only guy in the world that can kick my ass. So Gene turned around, stopped, and they started talking, and I'm right there with them. And he said, they started exchanging martial arts moves. So he started showing him some wrist locks. Steven was showing him one, and then Gene was showing the counters, of course. And then Gene started sharing a little bit of knowledge with them, and so he was showing Steven how to do, he would put him in a cobra choke from behind, showing him, hey, if the camera's in front of you, so you don't stack up the actor and the bad guy or whoever's in front, you can have two heads, you can both see both actors in the shot. By doing this kind of a thing, the guy can struggle around and do his whole deal. Well,
then all of a sudden Stephen said, and Gene's already got him in the cobra choke, he's just holding him gently, but he's behind Stephen. So all 5 of his units are forward. Gene's behind him. So then he said, Seagal said, I never let anybody get behind me. And Gene, he's already holding him, he said, well, when I'm behind somebody, they're mine. And as soon as he said that, Seagal swatted down, hit him in the nuts, and as soon as he did that, Gene just cranked him with that 3-finger grip, cross-faced him, and took him straight down to the ground and leaned on him. If you've ever wrestled with Gene, you know how painful it is when he had his neck was, his ponytail went that way, his neck went straight, and then he just cranked him forward. I can't do it without losing the mic, but he cranked forward, and his neck was just crunched forward. He didn't put him unconscious, he didn't put him in a sleeper hold, he didn't put him in a rear naked choke, he just did a neck lock crank on him. But when he did it, he went down so fast, and then he got up real quick and started dusting himself off because he was embarrassed. And then we just walked off and went and did got the truck and everything, and then all the rumors started flying on the set, and everything changed. You know, I've heard the story so many times, and I'm thinking, well, who was actually there? That was actually right there with them, the 4 of us. I know I've heard different people say, well, I was there and I was there, the different stunt guys, but maybe they were at a wide-angle shot behind us, but I never saw any. There were just 4 guys there. Stephen, his LAPD guy, and Gene and myself. So that's how the story went.
We got questions. So the bottom line is this. Gene used to get mad at me when I didn't totally choke somebody out, so I called Gene up every day. You choked him out, you choked him out, you didn't choke him out, you threw your gun, you didn't fire, you didn't make him unconscious. It was really quiet, and Gene goes, you can't feel the pain when you're unconscious.
There is a question.
All right, question for Mario.
Yes. Well, that scenario, how did anybody confirm that Seagal actually met this man?
So I asked Gene this. I said, Gene, when I hired you and you told the story, you never said. He goes, wardrobe lady walks up to me months later, and she says, I was a wardrobe girl in that thing, and Steven Seagal pooped his pants. Well, everybody knows, don't piss off the wardrobe. I did it to older maturity. He still has pains from it, so don't mess with the wardrobe ladies. All right, guys, later, ask me about Jim Kelly and Jim Brown.
Okay, guys, I know most of you guys are a little tired. You want a training? You can grapple a little bit. I have a Judge Burnett. I have a boss. Me, myself. You can grapple with us if you want. If you're bored. Okay, guys, there's too many people who wants to talk. Come on in. Come on in.
Hello, everybody. A lot of you have no idea who I am. My name is Wendy LeBell, but for 10 years, I was Billy LeBell. I was one of Gene's many wives. And, yeah, many. And I'm hearing people talk about how they first met him. I met him when I was 5 years old because he was a friend of the family. His uncle was my family's attorney, and I just kind of grew up, I always knew Gene. And there was a little bit of a problem in the mid-70s, and he and I ended up, yeah, it was 70s, can't remember anymore. And I was very happy because I was there to help support him. And I know everybody is here because of grappling or wrestling or judo, but the thing I learned from him was riding motorcycles. And that was one of his biggest loves. I think working with go-kart brought back his love of grappling. But I'm going to turn around for just a second. I don't know if you can see the jacket, but this was his jacket that he used riding motorcycles. I got anyway, so because of Gene, I cannot tell you how many people, when they find out that I was married to him, I am suddenly the most interesting person in the room. And I will say, I do have a lot of Gene stories, of course, and it was a wonderful wild ride to be with him. I was very honored that we stayed friends afterwards. And he just, the kindness that he showed for people he didn't even know, the generosity that he always had for everyone, whether it was giving of his time or he wouldn't loan out his motorcycle, he'd loan out mine, but he would do that. And it's really hard to believe that he's not with us anymore. It seemed to me that he would go on forever. I am so happy that so many people are here to honor him. He deserves every accolade that he has been given and can be given. He was always at the top of the mountain for me. So, thank you very much.
That's my favorite stepmother. Cholo, Hollywood. I'm going to tell you my favorite story. When I was in high school, in the 12th grade, I went to a school called Fairfax High, and I was being bullied. One day I got a hold of one of the bullies, and I was fortunate enough to choke him out. Unfortunately, I had always been on the receiving end of being choked out. I didn't know how to revive the guy. So he was out about 15 or 20 minutes, and the police were involved, and they brought my dad in to the principal's office to explain to him what I had done wrong. And the vice principal was like, you know, the guy could have been seriously hurt. This was really a bad thing. And my dad looked at him and he said, well, he could have broke his arm. And the vice principal went on this long soliloquy of how evil I was. My dad looked at him, grabbed him by the throat, and said, I would have broke his fucking neck! I love about Hollywood High.
Hi everybody, I was asked by Charlie Piccioni for me to be able to read this because he cannot be here. I'll quickly do this. And that's close, not say for 3 minutes.
We're gonna put the minute. Oh.
Okay, I reclaim my time. No. Sorry I couldn't be here for Gene. I was hoping I could make it. I met Gene in 1962 on a TV show called Untouchables. We became friends ever since that day. I worked with Gene on many shows throughout the years. Every time there was a boxing or wrestling scene, there was Gene as a referee. There are many stories about Gene and all that we have. Here are just a few. I was in Hawaii directing, and I brought Gene, Jimmy Nickerson, and Kerry Cullen. There was a little fight on a cliff, and all three had to fall off 40 feet into the ocean. They had to time it perfectly with the waves, and I told Jimmy, keep an eye on Gene. Gene says to me, do you want me to go backwards or straight in? I said straight in would be fine, Gene. All three went in, and Gene wound up saving Nickerson from crashing into the rocks. That sounds about right? Another time, Gene, Glenn Wild, and myself were playing bad guys. Now I've been in this situation. I've been in this situation before with Uncle Gene. They were standing around waiting to do the scene when 5 young thugs came up and acted tough. Gene looked at them, making a slow move, as he always did. If you knew Uncle Gene, he'd come in like this with the eyes. And then he said, as he put his hand on her shoulder, I'm going to paralyze you. And Charlie says, I think they were still running after that one. Another time, a bunch of us were working for Gene at lunchtime, and Gene was demonstrating the chokehold at these young stunt guys. And one actually passed out. The next next week, I was directing a TV show, and I was blocking out the scene with the actors. One guy grabs another, and you're supposed to break the guy's neck. So I thought I would do Gene's chokehold. I was showing the actor the chokehold and told him, just put a little pressure. And I demonstrated, before I knew it, he fell to the ground and he was blacked out for 5 seconds. He woke up and didn't even know where he was. I told Gene what had happened, and I think Uncle Gene's still laughing about it now. All right. We all had great times with Gene, and we'll always remember him. Keep telling stories about him. He was known all over the world, and he will be missed. And the word legend is thrown around a lot these days, but Gene was a true legend. I love you, Gene, and I sure gonna miss you. That's Charlie Pachurli.
My name's Randy Hall. I'll tell you a quick story about how I met Gene. I was hustling stunts, Universal, set of Buck Rogers. They had a soundstage was set up to look like an Olympic event, like a futuristic Olympic event. In the dead center was a wrestling mat, and some guy with bushy red hair and a pink gi and a red and white belt, a little bit of a belly, I can say that now. And he's throwing this guy around like he's just popcorn. And I'm there to meet Mike Vendrell. Anybody here remember Mike Vendrell? Okay, Mike was a kung fu artist. I did martial arts when I was a kid, so I wanted to meet him. We had something in common. And I asked, who's this guy out there in the middle of the mat? Because I didn't know anything about grappling. He said, that's the greatest martial artist in the world. And he says, you should go down and train with him. I said, well, where do you go? He says, LA City College. And it was before go-kart came down there. But, so I go down there and I meet Gene, and I have a karate gi, and he tells me, kid, you're going to have to get a judo gi, we're going to rip that off you. And he puts me with Frank Tom. Anybody remember Frank Tom? All the black belts who were down there, hi Billy. He put me with Frank Tom and these guys, and they pretty much had their way with me. I didn't know how to grapple, and beat me up pretty good. And I'm laying in the corner, you know, kind of balled up, feeling like I'm going to throw up, and Gene says, come here, kid. And he gets me out in the middle of the mat, and he points his finger in my face, and he says, the first thing you got to know when you come down here is you never take your eye off your opponent. You listening to me? I said, yes, sir. And he says, that guy over there does it all the time. And I turned my head. And when I did, that catcher's mitt of a hand of his hit me in the side of the head. I saw a flash, and I was like, about to fall down. And he's got a hold of me, and he's throwing spittle in my face. He's going, what did I just tell you? You don't listen, do you? Yes, sensei, yes, sensei. So I was hooked. I loved it. This is where I'm going to go. So I'm going down there, and I ride motorcycles every weekend with Gene. We've become good friends. He's my mentor, my sensei. And I've been down there a couple years, and every night I get on the mat with Gene at the end of the night, because that's where you learn something. And I get out there one night, and I said, Gene, you know what I need to work on is what they're working on over there. And Gene turned his head. And I reached up ever so lightly, and I just tapped him on the cheek, and he kind of flinched because he didn't see it coming. And I said, remember what you told me the first time I came here, Gene? Never take your eyes off your opponent. I thought he would think that was funny. I was wrong. The next thing I know, I'm seeing the lights, and it's neck lock, hip lock, ankle lock. I mean, he beat me up for about 20 minutes, and I got news for you. I never, ever did that again. But anyway, going forward, thank you so much for this. And Midge, thank you so much for taking care of my pastor. And Stunts Unlimited, thank you guys for all the help you gave Gene at the end. Thank you so much.
I'll make it quick on my Ace. I was very fortunate enough to train with Sensei Benny the Jet, and he told me about Uncle Gene's place where we used to go to LA City College. Never ever have I worked so hard and I didn't know how great my training was till one day I was working on a show with all these pro wrestlers at downtown at the Grand Stadium, and I walked to set, there's this huge circle around all these pro wrestlers at the table, and I look in the middle and there's Uncle Gene going, okay, you get on like this, you do this and this, and then all these pro wrestlers go, Uncle Gene, Mr. LeBell, can you show me how to do this? Can you show me how to do this? They were just like kids salivating at a candy store. And then another other time I got to work with him on a show. He gave me my first job working as a wrestler, Devil and Ruth Buzzy, Boston Bad Guys, and I got to spend a month with him in a ring, just being tossed around and learning everything on the set. Back in the day, that's what he did. He started me out, and I was there with him till the end, and I just so appreciate all the young training I got with him and Sensei Benny at the same time. I had no idea of the training I was getting at the time, and 35 plus years later, I'm so grateful, and it's just so wonderful to see all these great faces here and honor our Nestor. So there you have it.
Hello everyone, my name is Brill Kasimoff. This is from the perspective of the Los Angeles City College experience. I got to start with Gene and over there in 1978, of course, seeing Gene's illustrious position over at the Olympic Auditorium, and some of us know him as kids watching Freddie Blassie and Hunter Enriquez. But anyway, today, actors, stuntmen, A-list misfits, all of you, thanks for being here. Legends never die, as you know, and we're part of that legend. We all are sharing the same DNA. If you think about it, we hate that guy or girl, and we're out to kill him. But we need him tomorrow. We need him next week, and only to get better and better. As a student at Los Angeles City College, we got on their team and stuff, came to know Gene, and he walked in and he said, okay, black belts, walk over there. That's your locker room. And then we'd walk in, it'd be a padded cell there, and I looked at him and I thought, Pink Pete? All right, Pink Pete. So you think you're a tough guy? I go, yeah. And he said, get in the jigatai. I didn't know what a jigatai is. That's a Japanese word. Okay, so it means get in the self-defense position. You're ready. And then he said, you want to hassle now? I go, yeah. So then he would show some tricks. And then he would say, put him in a pretzel. And then he'd say, oh, and make him scream, uncle. And then, yeah, you can call the police. And he was called the police. Canada's police showed up a couple of times. No avail. He would say, stretch them. Stretch them to get their wallet. Now you can get their keys, that's it. Okay, so then the later part of the evening came challenge time. Lined against the walls, and one person would challenge someone else. Okay, you get up here. At LA City College, we had a number of good visitors. Superfoot Wallace came by one time and parted people's hair. It was a real treat. You didn't ever know who walked into the door. He'd always tell us, you are my friend. See you next week here. And at Christmas time, he would send us patches. Beautiful patches of the stunt work. I'm sure a lot of you have those. And he taught us to tire training. It's the first time I ever learned about tire training. He said, you want to get your pull, you roll the tire, you throw it over your shoulder, and you roll it, and get it again. And if you're that good, then you do it uphill, and then you do it downhill, and you'll let the tire outrun you. Lastly, he was a futurist, a visionary, as you know. We all share his DNA. Legends never die. We're all legends here.
Okay, when I come to America, this is very interesting, guys. Back there, everybody's talking. I know you don't care about us here. First time when we come to America, I didn't speak English at all. The only guy I meet the first time, Krill, he speaks a little Russian, and he was very helpful for me. And until today, it's 42 years past, and I never forget this one. This is with my friend, you know? I love you, my friend. Love you too. Yes, thank you so much. We have a lot of good friends here. A lot of memory, over 42 years.
So, Gene LeBell is my friend. I met him 25 years ago at first. Went down to school in Hollywood with a couple of friends, and I figured, they're not going to pay us much attention. I saw Gene. Gene greeted me like I was a long-lost friend. And me and my buddy said, we're going to try to come here and train. My one buddy, who was a smart aleck, said, Gene, can you make us champions? And Gene said, those two guys will be champions. You'll be a contender. So I saw Gene at regional events for about the next 20 years. Never got to know him until I got into media. My show's MMA Power Hour. did an interview with him for 70 minutes, one of the greatest interviews I've ever done. And I talked to him on the phone probably once or twice a month for the last 6 years of his life. And got to know Gene. I've known a lot of famous people, but I would get off the phone if it would piss my girlfriend off. Gene LeBell, I would never get off the phone. I didn't care how much it pissed her off. And she would say, come on, I'd say, look, I'm talking to Gene LeBell. I'm not getting off the phone. She goes, I'm not going to be happy. And I said, that's all right, don't be happy. And one of the things I want to say is Gene was a man from a different generation. He was true class. I never knew anyone as successful and famous as Gene that never had a bad word to say about anybody. Anybody. He would say that guy is great. If it was Boss Rutten, he's great. Aaron Paulson, he's great. Gokor, great. Josh Barnett, he's great. Everyone was a great guy that Gene respected. Gene had love in his heart for everybody, and I don't think we're going to see anyone like Gene LeBell ever again. And I know he's watching over us. Gene, I love you, brother. It was a pleasure knowing you, and wish you were still here.
Before we take the wrap and go out and shoot the picture, somebody needs to speak about one more person that was very, very dear and important to Gene, and that's this guy over here, Gokor. If Gene had an honorary son, it's this guy, trust me. He called him the Armenian assassin. He spoke about him with love. You can't even imagine the relationship these two guys had and how much Gene loved this guy. And Gokor, thanks for putting this on today. This is a wonderful event. Honor our dear departed friend. We're going to miss him. There won't be another one like him. But anyhow, thanks everyone. Give Gokor a big round.
Okay guys, we're gonna finish talking. I know some people thinking to talk, but I'm so sorry. I don't want to go more than with I promise us 2 o'clock we can done. But I want to say everybody say a lot of good things, and for me it's very difficult to talk about it. But the most important things, I met Gene 42 years ago, and he be like a family, and he be like a father, he be my coach, he been everywhere. Everywhere I competed, and he was my corner. So he always worry about me. Some point he knows I'm tough and I can do stuff, but he also worries that, oh, you never lost. I don't want to have a loss. Like 2 years ago, I competed the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and Grappling World Championship. So, and you know, he was very worried. He tell me, you have a good name, and why are you doing this? I said, Gene, if I lost, that's mean it's somebody's better than me. So, but I'm not gonna lose. I'm gonna win. So after I win, he wants to do a party. He was so happy, my friend. That's the type of man he was, and you know.
Everyone, look at that picture up on the wall. That picture was taken at my Winter Nationals tournament. I'll tell you the story behind that picture. Gokor was walking around in his clothes, and I said, you gonna compete? And he said, oh, I didn't even bring a gi, Gary. And I, get him a gi. We put him out there. That picture was in black belt. There's a video of that picture. That's the throw that was heard around the world. And I won't tell you about the guy he threw. He couldn't have thrown a better guy, in my opinion. But that's the symbol for the Winter Nationals tournament, the biggest tournament in the United States. For judo.
At least he's talking about me. I'm not talking about myself.